Bro, what'd they do to Will Smith?
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
Hey, what is up everyone? This is Ergo Josh. Welcome to my YouTube channel. And thank you guys so much again for hitting 300,000 subs on this channel. Like I said in my community post earlier this week, I wanted to thank you guys and show my appreciation by doing this challenge where you guys just tag your post on Instagram with ErgoJosh300K, and then I would review it and give you guys a nice critique and roast session, part 2 in this video. Now, there were over 900 posts. We almost hit 1,000 posts actually. So thank you guys so much for the turnout. It was insane. It was right within my expectations, but I did not know we'd get that close to 1,000. So of course, you know, in order to make this video, I can only pick a few of them. So if you weren't chosen, don't worry. Still try to watch the content because there's going to be a lot of information here that I will use to help everyone and not just try to help the person that I'm looking at currently for the specific image that I'm using on Instagram. So I decided to take your guys' feedback. With the last video, you mentioned that it would be helpful to hear what was going well with the artwork rather than just what needed to be improved. So today I'm going to be paying special attention to that as well and making sure that I talk about it in a way where everyone can understand. I think this is something that is unfortunately really hard to come by within the art community, so that's why I'm doing these videos, and I hope that you can enjoy and benefit from it as well. Again, thank you so much to everyone who entered. I really appreciate it. Don't worry about if you weren't get chosen again. There's going to be more of these in the future. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into the roasting. All right, for this one, it looks like you were sketching a very moody reference here. I really like, again, we're gonna start off with something that's really good here. I like how you weren't afraid to use a full range of values. You have very bright values, and then you have very dark values in the shadows there, just like what's in the reference. And a lot of people don't have the kind of courage to do that because they're too worried about messing things up. And so I really applaud you for being able to do that and add that full range within something that gives it a lot of contrast and interest. But where I feel like you could have pushed this is really the effect that I'm getting when I look at this portrait, unfortunately, is that she kind of looks like a zombie, even though it's a really moody thing. The different patches of flesh have these very stark tone changes and there's very sharp edges to them where it feels like, you know, the flesh is beginning to decay at different rates. So when you look at the reference, it's completely different where you have these dark shadow areas where it's necessary, but then outside of that, everything's kind of blended together. It kind of works and just, you know, the skin transforms and changes colors based on, you know, the blood location and all of that. So I'd really encourage you to pay closer attention to that and not have too many really sharp edges where it's not necessary and keep them to where you do have them there. All right, this one, it looks like you were drawing Mulan, but then this guy said big titty Bakugo. All right, I don't know what 1800 Mochi is talking about there, but I really like this. I love the composition of this and the angle. It's very interesting, very dynamic. I love how you got that sense of her legs being closer to us, so they're bigger, and then her upper body is farther away, so it looks dynamic. Here, I want to get you on the hair. The hair is a silhouette, which is something that I do recommend that people focus on, but I would have liked to see you take a little bit more pay conscious attention to what's blurred and what's sharp. It seems like you're kind of hesitant here. Some of this hair seems blurred and some of it is sharp, and I would like for the highlights to give me a sense of the flow of the hair better. It seems like these highlights were placed kind of randomly on the silhouette, and I'm not getting a sense for how the shapes of within that silhouette are actually moving. So one thing I like about what you did is you actually didn't use, even though it's a very muted color palette, you didn't just use black and white for the skull in the background and then blue. I really, you know, I feel like it's a personal thing, but not really. I don't really like seeing spot color. I feel like it's really old. But what you did here is you had this really nice off blue, like a very subtle muted blue for your foreground or your background rather. And then you had the blue really saturated with the butterfly. But here I feel like it's really like, if you want to do this, you really got to nail the anatomy of the skull right here. There's still a lot of areas, like I don't get a sense that the dental sphere is rounding this corner here. The teeth feel really askew. The the shape of the entire skull right here seems like it's flattened in perspective and it's not really going around. We shouldn't see that much of the eye socket there. It just looks like it. I just don't have a real sense for that form, so I'd really recommend you practice that more. Boy, she thick, boy. I love this dynamic lighting. I really think people should try this a lot more. You nailed the lighting on here. Like getting that like it's saturated in the background, but not over, it's not too much, and it's really nice and sharp and bold, like this nice golden hour lighting here on this streak, and then it kind of fades away into the background. There's really nice attention to detail there because it gives a lot of depth to this image without you having to add anything in the background, right? But of course, where I'm going to get you again is the forms of the head and the forms of the face. It seems very flat outside of the features. You really did a nice job with the lips here, especially with that highlight there. I feel like there's form to it, like the lips have this plane, you know, where they kind of roll around the forms of the skin there, but the eye socket is non-existent here, as well as the nose. There's just a little bit of shadow haphazardly placed, and along with the sides of the face as well, where I feel like you either want to go with the very nice aesthetic overall kind of generic look, the way you shade faces with the anime style, or you want to be very clear with the planes of the face and how those change. Okay, here again, nice use of a full range of values. I really love these flowers in the background of her hair there. They really seem nice and soft, but where I want to draw your attention to is the hair. I'm not so sure if this is something that's really intentional, but it looks like the hair feels like a thimble or a spool of really rough wool or yarn. I'll try to find a picture of it to show you guys, and I feel like it's just way too rough of a texture that you really want to show for the hair. There's highlights everywhere along this entire section, and it's not really, it doesn't really make sense. There should be a little ray of highlights on one end, the end that's like perpendicular to the light source, I believe, and then those highlights should only be in like one area and slowly fade away. And so I feel like those strokes, like having so many strokes in there, you could have that as part of your style, but you really want to think about how can you mix that with the realism a little bit more so that it tells a little bit more of what you're trying to do. And when it comes to the shading of the face, I like how you have some hard edges in the features, but there need to be harder edges in the skin as well if you're going to shade it this much. Everything is smooth outside of these features except for the jawline here. There should be some sharper plane changes here and there, and if you had a reference, I could point out specifically what it is, but that's really what you want to be able to do. Some of these edges are a little bit too sharp as well on the face, especially with the lips. Your lips are going to be a lot softer and transitioning into your skin there, so try to keep that balanced. Nice job with this one. It has a very, I feel like honestly, this is better than the one I did in a lot of ways. It's just a way more interesting to look at. But for this Sailor Moon redraw, there's always, I can say this all the time, people really, really need to find a way to get, it's always an ongoing thing to work on your form. And when it comes to these kind of things, it's really tricky to do with anime style, but this face still feels like it's closer to being on a sheet of paper that's held in front of her head rather than actually sitting on that face. So work out, having a little bit of a guideline with how the features sit and wrap around the head. But where I want to draw your attention to is the ponytail here. I think you could do a little bit better in making it not feel like it's just stuck onto the image. I would love to see it kind of wrap around her shoulder and relax and just fall down her shoulder onto her chest. And you could probably do that with a little bit more of highlights going as the little blue kind of ambient lighting hits this part of her braid here. It just feels too stuck on, and I'm not getting a sense for all of the nice forms within that braid. I would love to see you experiment with how to draw that really, really well. And one artist I know that does braids really great is Onip, so you should check out some of her work to get an idea of what I mean. Again, this is a great use of textures. I really love these freckles and the highlights here, and you're having a good understanding of colors too. None of these colors seem too crazy, and you have a sense for quality there. I love that, eyebrows on fleek and all that. But again, we want to see a little bit more edge work when it comes to the lips here. They feels a little bit like a PlayStation 2, PlayStation 1 game right now. The form as it transitions into her cheek on the left side and even here on the right side is a little lost. Your lips really kind of fold inwards and then it comes back out to form the rest of your face, and so it just feels kind of stuck on there as well. We want to see some sort of transition here with the nostril, the outside of the nostril there, and this edge just feels a little bit too too like sharp to me. I'd love to see some shadows or some rim lighting here. Just it needs a little bit of work, but it's very close to being where I think you would be a lot more happy with it. Oh, and I just saw the reference here. Like, so yeah, that shadow's there. You really want to pay attention to that. Look at that nice shadow where it shows that pocket of her lips going back into the skin of her face. Look at the shadow under her lips there where it's giving it this nice thick depth to it. Really pay attention to those things so that your artwork can come alive. All right, I'm not gonna get on you too much, but when you submit things or post anything traditionally, please make sure to take a picture of it properly. It's really skewed here. I don't think this is really how you intended to draw it. It's just at an angle, right? It's like this. That's how it looks, as if you drew him at this angle here, and it's not working for you. So make sure you try to do that. It really shouldn't. It's just a matter of trying your best to really center it above it. As long as you have a phone, you should be able to take a straight down image of your artwork. All right, here I really love this use of colors. I love artwork that really takes a lot of freedom and liberty when it comes to the colors of the skin. Skin is really something I absolutely love to render and draw and paint, but here the features are really getting in the way of me enjoying this. The eyes are way too close together here, especially since this is a male and he looks fairly masculine with this big jawbone. You usually don't want to pair it with a feminine trait where the eyes are, where the keystone is very small. Eyes closer together does tend to be a little bit more of a masculine thing, but this is just way too close to where this V shape here, if you pay attention to that, should be a little bit wider for somebody's head that's this size. I really like the mood of this. Again, I'm all about using monochrome for your coloring strategies. So here the hair quality is really bringing down the quality of the overall image down a lot. I would recommend that you go and pay attention to the silhouettes and really try to make that look like hair. If you want to, just take your reference and darken everything so that you just see the silhouette and try to get an idea of how that hair looks, what's going to make it realistic. That's why I'm going to plug myself here in my hairbrushes pack on Gumroad. Click the link in the description box below. But in those brushes, I try to do a large variation of different, either a very thin brush that you can use to get those nice flyaway hairs, or a nice big chunky brush to get the main kind of strokes that you would see near the edge of the hairline, depending on what hairstyle, or even some really big chunky brushes where you can do a swirl effect for some natural hair. But here it still looks very digital arty, like you took an airbrush and is painting, you're doing your best painting through it, and the hair kind of feels like it's underwater a little bit. So I would really try to work on the silhouettes first and then see if you can get that looking more realistic. Man, we've got some intense people here. I don't even know if I can pull that up full screen without getting demonetized, yo. All right, here is a big thing that I see happening. Sometimes when you try to use colored lighting here, you really want to make a point to actually make it look like light. Right now, it just looks like you painted pink on it, and it doesn't look good. I can tell what you're trying to do, but I'm not getting a sense of light. If you want to show that there's light, you need to pick a light source, and then everything that would be affected by that light source should be lit up, so the inner parts of the eyes here would just not look like that. And if you wanted to show it as maybe makeup, then that's a whole different story there, and you'd have to work on making the whole image more monochromatic rather than just black and white. And you definitely would not have a highlight that is colored. That is never going to happen. A sharp highlight is going to be very bright version of that color, is usually going to be as very close to white, and it's going to have a much lighter value than everything else. Very nice here. I love these details. I don't know why it's not showing it. I'll try to zoom in here and post. But what I would say for this, I love this. The gold here, this is something that I need to work on because I need to paint gold better. But for you, I'd say working on getting your subject in focus and other things less in focus is really key for you. This edge here is just a little bit too sharp for me. It feels like this is unfinished rather than being in the background. Again, with this hair, it feels a little bit too frizzy, like just too many strokes are being made. I'd want to see you use bigger brushes for the kind of stuff that's less important. And then these nicer areas up here where we see these details can stay in focus there. I love how this is more sharp and more refined there. But yet when I look around here, this area is really lacking, and I'd love to see some of this blur a little bit too as well, just so that you can pick what you really want in focus, and then everything else can be left up to the imagination. Here, this is a more compositional thing, so I love how smooth this looks. This is really nice, and then the highlights there, you did a really nice job. I love adding highlights. This is great. This is very satisfying to see. And the skin texture, this is one of the most unique skin textures I've seen, where it's not perfect. It's not just perfect with freckles. It has a really nice rich feel to it. But where I want to really help you out is the composition here when we go down. So I like how the hair is less detailed here. It's really not really detailed anywhere, which I would try to work on. The hair closer to the face should have more detail in it, but it's getting a little weird how the hair has more detail than the body as it's going down, and then we have some detail here, and it's just not organized. You want to think top to bottom and have that a smooth gradient really. So if the hair is getting less detailed, then the whole body should get less detailed, and I'd say everything kind of below this line should be a lot more blurred, and things should get lost kind of down here, especially with the hair. It feels kind of weird, like she's a floating torso with hair that's coming down past her. So I would work on that a little bit. And also just a random Instagram tip, try to crop things a little bit better so that the top of the edge isn't just painfully close to your subject. By the way, if you are not following me on Twitch, you should, because that's where I live stream, and it's fun. We do a lot of drawings there. You get to see me work on my more serious artworks, and we do sing-alongs at the end of the stream. We just sang You're Welcome from Moana last night, I believe. Yes, we did. So, you know, you could have been there for that. Subscribe. Follow me on Twitch. Really nice work here. I love the texture. This is like the really nice digital art look that I like and appreciate, because there's a nice kind of painterly texture here that's very refined, that's actually kind of tricky to do with traditional, that is pretty easy to do digitally. But what I would like to get you to focus on again is the hair. The hair is your weakest link here. Really try to get that same thing. Pay attention. You're paying attention to these shapes and letting those shapes inform the folds in this clothing here. But then when you get to the hair, it's just hairbrush. It just looks like a hairbrush. A lot of hair strokes here. This feels like just a shape here. It doesn't feel like hair with some strokes for highlights there. Really try to focus on looking at it as a shape first, having sections that are highlights, sections that are like thinking about it as the planes of the face almost, like there's different parts of the hair that are moving in different directions, catching the light in different ways, and that should really help you out. And I also think because of this rim lighting, it should be a little bit more apparent. I feel like the rim lighting is a little bit lacking, and there should be a much clearer silhouette around her that would really make her pop. But you really have to pay a lot of attention to that and really slow down and don't make it look too crazy. Make sure it's curving around her forms as it should be, and make sure you have a reference to check that out. Oh my god, I already knew. Good job, because I was like, oh, is that Zendaya? Oh man, I need to draw Zendaya. I don't know why I haven't drawn Zendaya yet. Really nice job here capturing the likeness. It was like that instant for me. But here again, this is something that I've congratulated other people on doing. But here, I really would love to see you use a bigger, wider range of values. Don't be too afraid. You know, make sure you can get like, try and get like a 6B pencil, you know, those really darker ones to really make those corners and deeper parts of the eyelashes and eyebrows really nice and dark, and get some nice edge work in there just to really add some interest and make things really contrasty, you know, because if I'm scrolling through this, it's really hard to read that one compared to everything else on the screen. It's really easy to see. This attracts my eyes the least. The only reason I picked up on it was because, you know, it's Zendaya. So with this one, I really like it. This is a really cool style, and I like how you controlled, you know, your line work for the hair. It doesn't seem too much, and I love this really fuzzy texture for the shirt. I'm probably going to try and do something like this myself. It's such an easy way, it feels like, to capture so much texture in something so quickly and easily. But here, it's kind of another composition thing. The anatomy feels not too bad around the upper body, but when we get to her hips, it starts to feel noodly, you know, like how you drew people with your arms behind their back and they'd be leaning and kind of curving around like this. That's what's kind of happening here. I'd really, you know, try to pay closer attention to whatever reference you're using to make sure it feels less like you're just continuing everything in the same line. And even if it's the case, I would, you know, pay attention to this and realize, okay, this is feeling too much like a tangent. Let me show a little bit more of her skirt, and then let that contrast with where her legs are, so I can give a little bit more break in the pose and the lines that I'm seeing, just to make things more dynamic. It's summer. What I really want to know the story behind this. This is very interesting. Like, this guy especially looks super scared. I wonder what he's going on. Oh man. Ooh, this one. Look at this. This is really nice. Like, look at the control of the edge work here and the highlights. They're so strong. I love this. And then as you get further out, it shows like more of how you block things out. this is such a cool way to kind of take detail away. Really, really nice work here. For me, it's really just like, I feel like the hat is a little bit off center and I'd want it to be more centered a little bit. And then the hand, it's kind of odd to see the hand completely disappear and not have any idea of what the fingers are doing. Like, this is what it looks like this person is doing, right? And it's like, that doesn't make sense. Are they holding their head? Are they like, what are they doing? It's like, I'm looking at myself to make sure this is right, because it's like, it's a little bit odd. So the context is, I think, what's bringing this down the most. But I really love the way you've controlled your highlights here. Really, really brilliant. Well done. Ooh, I love this. You got a really nice, this is, you know, you clearly watched my video, and if you haven't seen it, you should watch it. But how to draw faces easily. This is like nice. This is nice. It's aesthetic. I love how the eyes are contrasty, even though the skin is really dark. It really makes you want to spend extra time to look at this. But when it comes to these types of things, you should really try to focus on your shapes and make them a lot more bold and clear. I feel like personally there's lines and curves here that are subtle in the back of her hair that are hesitant. I'd rather them be very bold or just perfect like arcs here. I would recommend looking at like Ariel and the hairstyle for a lot of those other Disney princesses. In almost every frame, you'll see that it's usually something that's very expressive and a very bold, captivating shape. Especially with her hair here, I feel like it's losing the potential it had to be something more iconic here. But you know, when it comes to this part of her dress here and the body, these are really nice shapes. And I wish I could see more. Just looking at the overall composition again, it's just like, it pains me to see this frame kind of just shifted off center. You know, I really recommend, I think composition is going to be the name of the game with this video. I really would like you guys to work on trying to make something more presentable for even, no matter where it is, just try to make it as presentable as you can. This is creative. There's a cake. She's a cake and somebody took a bite or a slice out of her. This is really cool. I would have paid a little bit. Be a little careful. I don't know if you're going for that effect where it does look like she's made out of cake, but it looks like there's a card held in front of her, like a little book, rather than it actually being a slice, because of this little shadow here. So it looks like there's a shadow there because the card is in front of her casting a shadow, rather than it just turning the corner and it being that she's actually made out of a cake. So I'm gonna assume that she's made out of cake. You said tasty there, so that's my critique for you. Again, you guys, I gotta give you props. There's a lot of room to improve with this one, but I immediately knew it was Tom Holland, so nice job with this. With here, you wanna do a little bit of value control. I know I do say to focus on your features first and make them the more darker aspects, but you went way too far with the nose here, buddy. Like the nose, it looks like it would be super, super red if this was in color. You wanna tone that nose back and then make the tones in the face a lot smoother or show a little bit more of the forms. With the shirt, you've got a lot of work left in it because it looks like it's just like a ghost, like it's a smoky image of a shirt, you know, and I'm not seeing any hard edges whatsoever. There should be a lot more, especially in the face as well, if you're going for that more realistic style. And so I'd really recommend, you know, if you use airbrush, you got to spend a lot more time, or take a harder brush first and then use the airbrush to kind of smooth out areas as you decide. Oh boy, Spider-Man, Spoder-Man. Another Tom Holland one. I just had to because of the eyes here. Okay, so you really got to work on your proportions and your face anatomy here. You can kind of get away with it because the body's really cool. I love these highlights and reflections. Like, that's really nice. It caught my eye. Honestly, the colors and the contrast and the highlights, it caught my eye. But the face, it's just like, everything has been pushed, and we know for a fact, I know a lot of you got on me last time about like, what if the guy actually looks like that? Well, here we know that they do not look like this, so really try your best, because it looks like his nose has been smushed, his eyes are kind of bugging out, and his mouth, like, it's really just that nose, really, that's the biggest offender here. So really try to work on your proportions and your facial anatomy. All right, so this one, I like what you're going for, this really moody look. I get the emotion here. I'm really getting the vibe and the ambiance to this piece, but I think it's just a little bit too dark. Like, it's so hard to see what's going on. Like, when I saw it, I'm like, what is it's like you can tell, but it's too hard, I think, for a piece of artwork. Try to figure out a way to show a little bit more lighting, maybe add a nice little triangle reflection. I know Muhammad Akbadi is super great at doing that when he's doing his own critiques and he actually paints on you guys. Better channel than me. All I'm doing here is just sitting in my chair talking. But I recommend you try to add some shape highlights, you know, so that this can come through a little bit more, because we have this nice ambient lighting over in the corner. So that would really help make this pop. Bruh, Moro, like I literally, like, I just want to call myself out here. Like, literally, I can't, like, I don't have anything to say here. This is like such a nice traditional feeling piece. Like, it's great. You know, it's nice. The only thing I would maybe say is like this area up here is the only place where I feel like you just went like, you just scribble that in. You're like, all right, there we go. But everything else is just wonderful. But like even this, it's this nice control hatching, but that's the only thing over there in this corner right here. But you know, what do I know? I can't do the stuff like this. For this one, I'm gonna say this is a perfect example of when you do such a great job. The hair, I love this. This is like, I love the glass kind of translucent hair look, but this is an example of when you do your best on what you're good at and then you slack off on something else and it hurts you. The hands here, the hands themselves are not bad, but it's the shading. You did such a nice job with the hair, and the face is pretty good too, but these random sharp strokes for the highlights here on the hands really reveal that, wait a second, I don't have a sense of light direction in this entire piece. The random red tones in the fingers here, which I don't feel like they would even be that red there because it's mostly bone in that area. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, like I feel like you should have taken a little bit more time to shade these hands. And I know they're tough. You really don't want something weak happening where it brings down the quality of the rest of your artwork. Yo, I just finished Kill la Kill. I think this is my last one. I saw this and I was immediately like, I have that anime, that post-anime depression. I literally finished it last night. Such a good anime. But let me actually look at this artwork then. I really like this. The only thing that's making me a little bit uncomfortable is when I look at her rib cage here. It looks like she's a little bit, you know, malnourished and deformed a little bit. This goes in a lot. And then there's a curve here. So it's like you're not really doing a super straight edge thing. But then I see your arms are like that kind of too. So I feel like I do see this as being part of your style. But there's something a little bit uncomfortable about it. And I think maybe if you did a full body, it would come across a little bit better. Yeah, like here, like I actually do like the body more, but when I see this arm, it feels oddly too thin. This body actually feels kind of cool. Like it reminds me of like Crayon. I'll try to throw the image up. I'll really try my best to remember, but there's something about the anatomy here that's bringing it down a little bit. And then also, I do love the sketch a lot more. I wish, you know, this is a common example of when I wish, you know, you were able to keep that sketch and the energy of it with the colors rather than doing a line work that's weaker. Like these lines are just, you know, on the side of her breast here, just not doing it justice like they did here. It's hard, it's tough, but I really, really do like the sketch a lot more. And if you could find a way, I'd experiment with taking this sketch as it is and coloring it and just adding, you know, some subtle edge work, details, line work with a brush that's very similar to what you did here. It looks like this was traditional. But yeah, really, really nice work. Yeah, like even here, I like that bend in her eye there much more than this sharp bend here. And these like really bright highlights are really cool too. Another thing, try to make your strokes more bold. This is a little bit too wobbly for a highlight. That should be really, really clean and just like swoosh, you know. So really nice job there. So I made it to the bottom of the list. It actually took me a lot less time than I thought, but you know, I am sorry. Again, I can't get to everyone. This is too many of you guys, but I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it helped you out. You know, biggest thing I saw here is composition. Try to look up some composition stuff. Maybe I should do, you know, tell me in the comments. Should I do a composition video? Should I tell you some tips on it, you know, help you guys out? Maybe you want to see that because that's what I see you guys could benefit the most from. All right, that's going to wrap it up for me today, guys. Thank you guys so much for entering this contest. It was great. It was a wonderful experience looking at you guys' artwork, seeing how many people are interested in this and wanting to hear my feedback. I think what I'm going to do is go through and just for the heck of it, like the ones I really feel like were really, really strong and like the ones that I feel like you just need to keep pushing. You need to keep pushing what you're doing. And the only way you would really benefit from me would be like one-on-one, really intimate kind of critique session with not just me, but anyone. You really need to just really take yourself to the next mile, and a really quick kind of critique isn't really going to be what would help you. So I'll try to go through and like everyone. I feel like that needs that. And then, yeah, thank you guys again for entering so much, and I will see you in the next one. Peace, keep drawing, stay positive, and stay safe. Goodbye, everyone.